gentrification. And what we're seeing is that, like, once the gentrification ball starts rolling, it is very, very difficult to stop it. And so, like, now we have a problem with, affordable housing. If they can't find out where they're going to rest their head at, if they don't know where their job is, they don't feel comfortable going back and forth to school, all of that stuff is going to breed violence. And so that is how we got it. And we can't isolate that violence just to community. That violence spills over into our schools.
Absolutely. And I'm hearing more and more of that theme of there's so much. It's not just one thing. It is systemic, and there are many factors in play. I'm going to add this caveat to the question for you, Pastor Kelly, knowing that you have this background from the faith community. Could you add a little bit of context as well of how we got here with community violence, school violence, and also the perspective of where has our faith community been on this issue?
Absolutely. How we got here. First off, I agree with everything that has already been said. And yeah, I agree also when Miss James started, I was already like, don't call me second. Cause I've been in her presence before. She's very powerful. But I agree with everything that's been said. And speaking from the faith base, we're not out there. Just gonna be honest. We're not out there. Some of us may be, but it takes more than just some of us. It's gonna take all of us to be out there to repair our communities. I know, Cedric, you and I, Isaiah 58:12, that's our thing. Like, we are called to do that, to be the repairers of our community so that the streets will one day be safe to walk on again. I don't feel like we should be afraid to mentor or talk to youth or even deal with the mental health challenges that the parents that they deal with. I believe how we got here as well, it is hereditary. And these are things that are not being dealt with. These are things that, unfortunately, for so long in the faith-based community, the stigma around getting therapists or having counseling, seeking outside help, they have actually hurt us, and we've been dying in there because we don't seek outside help. And I'm a firm believer that we can seek wise counsel and those type of things. So I believe that is on the faith-based part. That's how we got there, because we're stuck in tradition. We're not trying to move towards this new thing that's happening. I'm not about to preach, but the word will stay the same, but our methods have to change to reach the people. And so as faith-based, we need to get out of those four walls, get back into our communities. And also, we need to acknowledge and recognize that mental health, just like physical health, is real. And we have to deal with that first. The pandemic didn't just happen to adults, it happened to children as well. They have a voice, they're going through things. And we don't even understand that while they were out of school, the things that they were running from, they actually had to face because they didn't have that escape. And so now they're going back into the schools, and it's not the teachers' faults because they're teachers. They're not counselors. They're not mental health specialists. They don't know how to deal with certain things that these youth have been exposed to. Last thing I will say, I can remember having these conversations with my nieces and nephews about what they were seeing on TV when they saw us being murdered in front of their face. And this was what happened during a pandemic when we were closed in, and they saw that, and it played over and over again in their head. Now that they are in schools, now that they are, going back out, it's like they're living in a sense of fear because they don't know how to speak about what's going on. Some may be the head of households, so they're overwhelmed with not being able to live in their innocence because they have to take care of. So I feel like it's a lot of things that have got us here.
And those are excellent. And I thank you so much. That's powerful. Each perspective and how we got here, and also just the understanding that the trauma that comes with even the images that we portray or see on our television, social media, and our kids are dealing with this each and every day in a way that we may not typically understand or relate to. And this mental health piece is also huge. So thank you so much, Ms. Kelly, for that information. So we're going to dig a little deeper on our next question. So this next segment, we're going to talk about how are we doing currently with community violence and also in our schools. So we're going to talk a little bit about the programs and services that are community-based, that are based in our schools. How are we currently doing in that area? And I'll start off this time with you, Nakida.
That's a big question. I think that we are gradually realizing that there's a need for violence intervention and interruption programs, not just in the community, but in the school as well. I think that there are mentorship programs that are taking place that are positive, that are actually having an impact on our young folks. I think that we need to continue to definitely sow into those organizations and make sure that we are continuing to keep the door open between the grassroots groups and the institutions. So in my 17 years of experience and beyond that, I was an institutional person. I had to be uninstitutionalized. I had to be uninstitutionalized because I thought I knew a lot because I went to school, I went to college, I worked at these jobs, and it was like, guess what? You don't live in the communities that are impacted anymore. And until you can involve the people that live there and put them at the center of that work, it will never work. So institutions have to learn how to step back so that residents can step up. And that work has been happening, I think, across our community. We've been teaching asset-based community development for over 30 years here. And it's actually getting to the point now where when I meet with institutions and they are not stepping back so that people can step up, I am pissed off. You know why? Because so many people before me have been saying this and preaching this and training around this, that we should know better now.
Just getting ready to liven this up. And when she says she gets pissed off, we've witnessed it. We being the coalition, Our Opportunity to Love, she is quick to correct. If we get to moving and want to do certain things, she will say, pause. Who have you invited from this community? Who have you involved from this community? So I must say, she literally does get pissed off. So we appreciate that because we always need that course correction. When you grow up, many of us don't grow up and stay in the same neighborhoods. We leave with the memories of those neighborhoods, but since we've left, those things change. So we have to stay focused on that. So I appreciate her for that. I also appreciate her insight because I'm going to tell you from my perspective, we're doing a piss poor job. That's just how I feel. That's how I feel as a parent. That's how I feel a parent whose son recently graduated from Mount Tabor. And I emphasize on every platform I've been on, that was a shooting that happened at a school that was not a school shooting. That was a shooting that probably could have happened in the community, but it brought it to school. And I absolutely despise that a child has lost their life. However, it opened the eyes of to the conversations that Nakida's talked about that we've been having for years. It opened the eyes that social workers, mental health providers, police officers, teachers, all of these institutions should not rest inside the school. You got to go home. You could tell I've had wonderful bosses, but the 2 or 3 horrible ones I've had, you can always tell what's going on in a person's house by how they acted in public, how they treat you in public. You could tell something might not be right at home. So we're getting better because at least we're now having conversations that include mental health. We're at least having conversations that we're talking about being inclusive, being equitable. But how long does it take? People are running out of patience. People are running out of resources. And it's, as a parent, getting on my nerves that I'm having to go in and be the lone voice that's having to repeat myself over and over. And I'm gonna probably say this more than once on here because this is front porch. I would say this at my front porch. It be your own people sometimes. It be your own people who, when you ask for resources, because my hair ain't as nappy as you think it should be, because I got on a little lip gloss, because I have some earbobs on, that you think I don't need the resources that I need. Do I have to look poor to be poor? It be your own people sometimes that's over these organizations who have the resources, who don't want to help each other, who don't want to help the community. And I've said this heard this on a few platforms and have repeated it. These organizations, we have to get a system to where when people come and ask for help, they don't have to keep retelling their same story. We need a system that from organization to organization, they have your information already. How traumatic is that? I'm already down. I'm already emotionally unstable because I'm down. And you keep asking me to repeat this story over and over so I can feed my children, so I can get gas in my car, so I can get these $4 Lay's potato chips because inflation is on the rise. I want to say we're trying. I want to believe, Nakida, but it's taking too long. We got to speed it up, or we're going to keep losing more people.
And Ms. James, I want to stay with that. I want to come back to it, though. I feel like you want to unpack that a little bit more. And Nakida, I know we had that brief interruption. I want you to come back to that point. You're saying that we can do better. So we want to actually figure out what that is. And then also, Nakida, you were saying that you were upset about some things. We want to also kind of touch on that. Don't want to lose that. So before we do that, Pastor Rock, could you tell us about how are we doing as a community when it comes to these issues, the programs and services that are in place right now to assist us in the community?
I'm torn in between the two. I think what Nakida was saying is very true. And I also think what Ms. James was saying is very true, because I've seen it from both ends of the spectrum. So I'm literally like in the middle of it. I feel like the resources that, or the organizations that are really trying, get a lot of pushback because of organizations that already have like the funding and the money and this and that or whatever, but they're not doing anything. But the organizations that's really got our feet on the ground, and nobody sees how we've made all of these like petitions, and we fight to get into the schools and to do this and that. Nobody sees the behind the scenes thing, but they're not willing to give us necessarily like the fundings that we need, because you have all these other big face organizations who's really not even, their intention isn't even to be in the community. It's literally like about their organization. So that's why I've seen it from that spectrum. I've seen it from, like I said, where we fight to get into these places. And when I say fight, we really fight because we come with a solution-based mind. And it's like everybody want to keep talking about the problem, but it's like, no, here's a solution. Here is, we want to fill this need. This is a study that we know can work, but everybody still is like focusing on the problem. So I see how that affects it as well. I think because when we talk about community as a whole, we could definitely be doing better. Because it doesn't make sense for this part of the community to be doing well and then this part of the community not doing well, because we're serving each other. So I think as a whole in the community, we can do a heck of a lot better. Even speaking to myself, I literally just felt like giving up Monday. I had a breakdown with one of my coworkers and was crying and everything because I was like, I'm just tired. I was where Nakida was. I'm just tired. I'm tired. We should have progressed by now. And I am tired. I'm tired. And also with that, we deal with, I heard Ms. James say, it's a lot of with our own. I've been on that spectrum, and I've also been where I've seen the white savior complex, where their education trumps our experiences. And now all of a sudden, your bachelors can tell you more about what they need, and you've never even been in the community. But you'll send me, someone that is of Black and or brown descent, to the community, but you've never set foot in the community. But you have a savior complex about you to think, oh, if we give them a meal, we did our job. Oh, if we, if we give them some shoes, or if we take them to McDonald's, we've done our job. And that is a huge problem, because it takes a certain type of insight to read certain people, and that might have worked for little Johnny, but that might not work for Blake. Blake might not need McDonald's. He might need something else. But like I said, a lot of the time, education trumps your experiences. And when you don't have all these kind of initials behind your name, you kind of get put on a back burner, and things go up in smoke. So I think we definitely could be doing better. I think we need to hear each other out more, and not think that we just need to have an open mind to where everybody don't think we know what's best for that situation. Like, if everybody can come together with open-mindedness, I think we can get to the solution a lot quicker.
Absolutely. Great point. So we're going to keep that rolling. So we're going to come back to you, Nakida. I know last time you were ready to go ahead and take us to where we need to be in regards to this conversation. So I want you to pick up where you left off. I heard Pastor Rocky mention this has to be resident led. And so how are we doing, Nakida, and just kind of pick back up on that theme that you were kind of hitting on before?
I think that we are trying, but once again, we got to put a little bit more effort forward, which means that we have to let down our guard as institutions, and let community take the lead. It doesn't mean that letting community take the lead does not allow us to share where we're strong at, right? Like, I work for an organization that's data driven. Just came out of a conversation. Data is good. Evidence-based programs are great because we know that they work. But when someone made this comment, and this is going to stick with me for a while, I just heard this. When we come into the community as the expert, and we're always asking, we need this evidence-based program, we are automatically turning people off, because what we're telling them is what you've been doing is not good enough. And these are the people that work with minimal or no pay. I've actually been in environments where folks will say, well, why do we have to pay the residents to do this and do that? Because they don't have disposable time like we do. And we're asking them to use their time. And you go to work every day and get paid to do what you do. So why won't we pay residents? To me, that was the way that I love to work, because I can't come into a community, even though I got cousins stay there, I got friends stay there, I don't live there anymore. My goal was to make sure that residents took the lead and they were paid for what they do. Until we all get the mindset that we trying to work ourselves out of a job, we ain't gonna never end this. Gun violence, poverty, none of it. I'm ready to get over and done with so I can go and sell my soaps, lotions, and potions. I got an exit strategy. And if we're really doing this work right, we would not hang on to, oh, I want to retire from this job, 30 years. No, that's not the mindset that we need to have. So, once again, like Miss Kelly said, I think that's Pastor Kelly. Can I call you Pastor Kelly too? Miss Kelly. I think it's important for us to make sure that we meet each other in the middle road. But, the evidence-based practices, I think we have plenty of them. We can talk about violence intervention programming that really does work. But until we get the buy-in from the people that live in the communities, it's going to be hard. And then I'll just say this, I think it's really, really important to recognize that, like most people, and maybe many people on this call, have already been trained in asset-based community development. And you know that the people, the individual at the center is really the main piece that's going to get all that moving. However, there are some things that the people in community need help with. When we help people, we shouldn't come in like with the savior mentality, right? Or there should be no strings attached to things. And we got to show people sometimes it may be one thing that we're coming in for, but if it's, as we learned, if it's rats, it's rats. If it's people in the community and the people in the community are concerned about the rats, we got to talk about the rats that are in the community before we can talk about the gun violence and the domestic violence that's taking over that community. So we got to stop being so selfish. And some of the people that's sitting on these boards at these organizations got to realize that we got to try something different. And I applaud United Way and the Place Matters initiative for trying something different. We're not perfect and we're not going to be perfect, but these porch conversations allow us to transition to where I think we're going.
Absolutely. And I want to tag that last piece. So coming to you, Ms. James, I want to come back to that point that you said so eloquently, that we're not doing a great job. I want you to kind of unpack that a little bit, but that next segue, which will be where do we go from here in terms of the hope for the future? I want us to also have that understanding that there are things that leave us hopeful, the experiences that we have with youth and families and community. So I do want to touch on that after your point. So I want to come back to you about the assessment of how we currently are doing. And then if you can kick us off on what makes you hopeful that we will, like you said, work ourselves out of a job and have this exit strategy like Nakida selling soaps, lotions, and potions. So how are we doing and your assessment on that?
So Nakida hit a nerve when she said retiring from a job, because I planned for my job to be able to retire because it's in healthcare. And one of the reasons I went to Winston-Salem State for nursing is because I was either going to be a mortician or a nurse, because somebody's always going to be sick, somebody's always going to die. However, even the realm of healthcare has changed. Healthcare does, and I'm an RJ Reynolds baby, meaning you went through spells of layoffs, or you either retired, one of the two, but you held your breath that they didn't call your number. I went into healthcare because most of my family worked for RJ Reynolds. So I was like, well, I'm gonna get out of that industry and come over here. But healthcare doesn't look the same. How do you buy or lay off nurses and medical staff? That doesn't even make sense to me. So she hit a nerve with that, because how things used to look, they don't look anymore. What I will also say is, to that point, I have consistently said, and I sit on the board of 2 nonprofits. I support a lot of nonprofits. I've received assistance from nonprofits, but it's too many of them. It's too many of them. And that really hit a head when I went through racial equity training with the Racial Equity Institute based in Greensboro, where they talked about the groundwater exercise and the fish in the pond, fish in the lake. Is it the water or the fish dying from something else? We need to get to the groundwater. We need to get to the root cause, because all we're doing is feeding fish. The fish dies here, we move to another area and feed another fish, and they die, we move to the fish. In the end of the day, the fish dead. Find out why the fish are dying. The fish are dying because we got too many nonprofits doing some of the same things. Now, one of the organizations, the Center for Trauma Resilient Communities, is trying to convene, MDC is trying to convene organizations so that this trauma resilience work that we're talking about, because if we're expecting our educators to help our children, some of these educators, gone are the days where you say, leave your personal life at the door. That's unrealistic and it's really unhealthy. You come in as you are. And if you're coming in as you are, if you haven't dealt with some of the trauma that you have as an educator, how are you going to help the children? When the children come in and they speak of certain things, how is that not going to trigger your response? Because in the end, we're all human. So there are too many nonprofits doing some of the same things, and there are organizations who are coming together to convene these nonprofits so that we can get on the same accord and not fight for funding, but utilize some of the same funding to be able to solve issues. I'm also going to say this because I am representing our opportunity to love and heal. And Cedric, thank you so much for inviting me. This might be my last invitation based on some of the other people who were on here. They may not invite me back. But I have to call a spade because we're still on the front porch, right? Our opportunity to love and heal, and Nakida, correct me if I'm wrong, because I came in later. It's been in operation for over a year. I understand it was founded by Nakida and Kelly Easton. Am I correct with that? Okay. They started, I want to say, in May of last year. I came in September. They were already doing work. They called me because of the shooting that happened at Mount Tabor, because that was, again, the Women's Gun Violence Prevention Coalition. That's what is now our opportunity to love and heal. Ultimately, this coalition meets every Tuesday. So there's work being done. We meet every Tuesday for an hour and a half, sometimes longer than that, because there's work that needs to be done. Last Saturday, we hosted yoga in the garden. It was supposed to be in the garden, but the way this ozone is set up, we had to find some shade down at the Enterprise Center. We also are planning to do by September a community garden. That garden is already there, but we're hoping to have some space specific for the community to be able to do events, again, at the Enterprise Center. What's happening at the Enterprise Center every Saturday, a garden is already there. A farmer's market happens every 9 to 12, every Saturday. I got some stuff in my refrigerator now that I need to go on and cook. It's forcing me to cook, something I don't like to do. But these things are already in place. This coalition has also loved on our schools, loved on our educators. We're planning right now to try and help love on our schools some more by supporting back to school drives. But let me say this, the elephant in the room, and this is why I'm going to get back to calling out, naming what needs to be named. This coalition is considered a subsidiary of Action for Equity. You heard it right, Action for Equity. Why do I say that?
That's right.
It's under that umbrella because Action for Equity is way more than you've heard about in the paper, than you read about in the paper, heard about in the news, and read on social media. Kelly's probably not going to like me saying this, but I got to call a spade a spade. Action for Equity is more than that. Action for Equity was already doing work. But see, when you're out here doing the work, you don't have time to go back and forth and compete with people about the lies that are being told. You don't have time for that because it's too much work to be done. That work is being done. We're doing it every week. Let me also say we're doing this work to make our children whole, to make our schools whole, which ultimately are going to make our communities whole. And in about 24 days, these same kids, particularly with the embedded mentorship program, that's 200 kids specifically, but all these kids are going to go, and these educators are going to return to school. Are they going to return to school better or worse? We're doing the work to try and make them be able to return better. But it takes all of us. And it takes us to stop the gossip. It takes us to stop the bickering. It takes us to say, instead of, I don't like what you're doing, to find out, hey, how can I help you? I see what you're doing. I may not agree with it all, but how can I help you? Because that's going to take work. And it's going to take a lot of work to get us to where we need to be. But one thing I've always said I wanted to do was be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And sitting behind a keyboard, gossiping and spreading lies is part of the problem. Again, sometimes it's your own people. However, because we're on the front porch, we got to talk to each other. We got to call it for what it is. And we got to find a way to correct it. And I will tell you, our opportunity to love and heal, along with other subsidiaries of Action for Equity, are doing the work. But you may not hear about much because we out here doing the work. So now that I've told you, there's no excuse for you not to know, to figure out how you can help and support, because the work is being done. And let me say this, I'm gonna stop there.
Okay. Listen, we're on the front porch today, y'all. And Micha, you have really admonished us and our community, and specifically called out things that definitely need to be talked about even more beyond this conversation. We do want to come back to you, though, about your hope and what you feel is where we're going in the community. What makes you hopeful that we will get to a point where we see a lot of these things start to either dissipate or eventually eradicate. And so I want to come to you, Pastor Rock. What gives you hope in this conversation that we're having, that we're going to get to a place in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County where we're not seeing these things, that peace of the city, that shalom, if you will. What does that look like here in Winston-Salem?
First off, what gives me hope is every day I wake up and look in the mirror, because just like Ms. James said, like, I am a product of United Way's help. I am a product of a lot of other organizations, Vote Rehab, these type of things, Goodwill, the reentry program. I'm a product of all of those things. The Holly House is YWCA is through the United Way. 9 years clean and sober. Thank God for that place. So I'm a product of a lot of these organizations. They help me. So every day when I wake up, and even when I feel like the burden that I carry is so heavy and overwhelming, I have to remember that some mantles that are chosen for you are chosen for a reason, because my God chose me to go through what I went through so that I can be a voice and stand out and say, hey, it is a way out, my brother, my sister, but you have to work it. They told me that the program works if you work it. And I kept that in my mind. And that's not saying getting over on the program. That's saying going in there with a mindset, a mentality that something has to change, and that something starts with me. I have to change. And when I began to change, I became a change agent. So that's where my hope lies, that if it can be done for me, I know good and well it can be done for somebody else. But we have to get out of our own way a lot of the times. I think in the Black and brown communities, because it was something that was a learned behavior way before it even got down to me, our pride sometimes can suffocate us, because we've been taught to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and asking for help is a weakness. And sometimes it's proven to be true because of our trust issues. So I'm always going to deal with mental health first. I see hope in when someone is able to deal with their core root of, like what Ms. James was saying, what's going on? Why do I think the way I think? I do RAP, Wellness Recovery Action Planning. It's teaching what wellness is. How do you do an action plan? What is a crisis? Because a lot of us, we live in a crisis every day, but because it became so normal, we don't even know that. And when we step outside of that and we see or we feel something new, it is kind of scary because we didn't even know it could be like that. So I do things like that to help us to say, hey, this is a crisis plan for me. This is what I look like when I'm well. Do we know what wellness is? We say this a lot, but do we really know what being well is? Mm-hmm. We talk about our emotional, our spiritual, our physical, our mental wellness in these things. That's why I see hope. That's because now I'm accountable for how I'm presenting myself to the world or to my community. And I feel like I'll draw those things to me. Whatever I'm putting out, I'm going to get in. I see hope when we're not afraid to go back to those communities. Ms. Daniels, you spoke to that. I moved up here in 1989. I've lived from the north side to the west side to the east side to the south side. I lived all over Winston. But I have to remember where I came from. And I have to know that if I'm doing better, especially when I seen the conditions that, you know, we live through. If I'm doing better, then my brothers and my sisters deserve to know that they can do better. Sometimes I feel like resources are kind of hidden and nobody knows about these things. And it's like we're suffering because we don't know. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where my hope comes in. Like I go back and I talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I pray that my life shows the change, but I go back into these communities that I know I helped to ruin. I wasn't always the best resident in those communities.
Mm-hmm.
I've robbed, I've done this, I've done that, I've been incarcerated, but now it's like, because I know better, I choose to do better. Because sometimes I can know better and still not do better, but I choose to do better. And my better is giving away what was so freely given to me, and that's another chance. And so I feel like hope lies within going back into these communities and speaking and letting your life speak for itself and bringing stuff like this to our community to say, hey, I do know of this program, whatever the case may be. I do know, you know, of some place where you can go and that need can be met. So that's where I see the hope. And I feel like if we continue to have things like this, to where we come on here and we talk with solution-based minds and we get to share each other's information. And don't think I'm not about to bring up all y'all's information when I go back to certain groups and things like this, because it's like, hey, I heard of this, I heard of that, this is what's going on here, da 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 da. That's why I've been writing stuff down. You know, I think that's where the hope lies. I can't just keep what I have. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way I'm going to get better, is if I give back to my people so they can be better, because we feed off of each other. We need each other to survive. So I do believe things can get better. It's just that we have to continue to understand that even though our burden may be heavy, a lot of the days we were chosen to do this type of work because everybody's not fit to do this. So that's where my hope lies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pastor Rock. Coming to you, Nakida, what gives you hope in our communities and in our schools? What gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that we keep these conversations alive, and then we take what we learn and immediately put it into action. I think that's the most beautiful thing. If I could name the one thing that community is most tired of, they are most tired of talking. So it's like, if you're gonna talk, you better have some action to follow up with it. And that just makes me hopeful. What makes me hopeful is that Miss Courtney Jones just asked this question about what can the faith community do? How can they be bought into this work? Because the faith community has so much power. But just like faith institutions or faith organizations are institutions too. So faith organizations have to learn that this is Jesus' work, but we can't go in, or this is, you know, whatever the faith is, it's that work, but we can't go in just pounding that in people's heads. Don't do that, because I'm not going to open my door for you. I don't want to hear all of that. Like I said, if it's rats, it's rats. Don't feed me your religion. Don't do that. And I'm a very religious person. I'm a very spiritual person. But that is not how I approach community. But I'm hopeful just to see that. And I think that, like, the faith community is very instrumental and can become involved. I work with an organization, which is actually a national organization, in my work at Everytown. It's called Faith in Action. And when I went to Birmingham and seen those pastors with their walk, they walk community. They do community walks. They go into community and make sure that there's funding for victims who have been impacted by violence or gun violence. Like, there's state funding. They show them how to get that funding to help their families to recover from the trauma that they've experienced. It's just a load of things I think that we can actually do, that faith communities can do. But I'll let I'll answer that question, but that just makes me hopeful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nakida. Coming to you, Micha, to wrap that last one up, and then we'll, if you want to touch on that question from Courtney Jones, want to lift that up again. How can the faith community be brought into the work, and what is missing that has to be addressed in the short and long-term change narrative of the faith community's involvement. So what gives you hope? And then how can the faith community be involved in this work?
So what gives me hope is when I was little, my sister and I are 8 years apart. And so, you know, when I was small, she was going into her teenage years, and every little girl that I saw had a tea set. And then, you know, if they didn't have a friend to sit with them, they would have their stuffed animals around, and they had a broad imagination. So my family got me a tea set. That tea set ended somewhere up under the porch during a storm, because it didn't make sense to me to just be sitting out there talking to myself. It didn't make sense. I needed something realistic. I needed something tangible to prove a point, to make me understand. My imagination is just who I am. It's just not that great. So when you talk about hope, it always brings to me what can happen. What can I see in the future? I don't do well seeing in the future. I see right now. And right now, what gives me hope is the work that I do every Tuesday when we show up. When we show up for the coalition, when we show up in our schools. What gave me hope, despite my son despising it, was that I showed up at school. Not to see what he was doing, but to show the educators, hey, let's have a conversation before you write them up on a D1, if that should come to that point. And then if I saw other kids, I went back to community. I went to their parents. Hey, you might want to check your son and make sure, you know, he's on the up and up, or check your child and make sure he's on the up and up, because you don't want him to be written up. We got to get back to that. And parents, let's be clear. We got to be open to it, because our babies are not as sweet as we think they are when they get outside of our homes. And we have to be okay with course correction.
That's right.
We got to be okay with our neighbors correcting our children. We got to be okay with our neighbors correcting each other. We're not always right.
Yeah.
It hurts when you standing strong on something and it's not what you thought it was. That hurt. It's a little painful. It's a little blow. But a bruise will eventually heal. But if we continue to keep bruising, that bruise is going to turn into an open wound, and that wound is going to get infected, and then here we are. So what gives me hope is that the women I show up with, the people that I show up with every Tuesday, we come up with solutions to be able to solve the issues immediately that Nakida's talking about. Because I don't do well with talking either. You lose me. And after having COVID with my memory issues, you definitely gonna lose me. You either gotta talk to me and prove a point now and tell me how I can help, or I'm gone. And so that gives me hope. What I will tell you is that Courtney Jones is now Pastor Courtney Jones. And Pastor Courtney Jones is also a divinity student at Wake Forest University. And what we know with some pastors can be a little messy. So I ain't gonna say she put this question in here to be a little messy, but we gonna answer it anyhow. I will say, along with that question, gives me hope to see people in the spiritual space, just like Chuck Spong, who's on here. Him and Love Out Loud, they are consistent in the work. I speak a lot, and I learned this term last year with doing the Our Kijiji vlog. There's a difference between an ally and an accomplice. We got allies, and we like your money, allies, but we need you to show up beside us. Why? Because just like me, I'm a visual person. So we need you to stand beside us when we're in these press conferences. We need you to stand beside us when we out here doing this work. We like your checks, but we need your bodies. Because if we're gonna be honest, it's the white community we're trying to talk to as well. It's the white community that we need to understand how we got here, because they're the ones to be able to change where we are, to help change where we are. But it's not gonna happen if they don't see it for themselves, that, oh, we were part of the problem, and we also could be part of the solution. Now, to answer Pastor Jones's question, much to what Nakida said, and I'm saying we gotta show up. What's missing and can be addressed is coming outside of the four walls. Much like I talked about needing resources and people didn't want to offer it to me because I didn't look poor. I don't want pastors and first ladies to look broke or be broke. But do you have to drive the cars you have and to have the houses you have? Do you have to have them that expensive? Just a question. Or could you share some of that with the people in your, not even getting outside your four walls, the people in your congregation. That's a short term. Yeah, we want you, and you know, everything's out on TikTok where the gentleman got robbed, and they say he got robbed because he had all the chains around his neck. We want you to live in wealth. Everybody wants to live in wealth, but spread the wealth. That's an easy, in my opinion. Well, I should say simple, because simple doesn't always mean easy. That's a simple solution. Long-term change to the narrative is pray and. I've said that a lot, and that comes with mental health. Yes, we want you to pray, and you're going to have to do something else. Jesus can solve a lot, but you need a therapist on earth. Yeah. Let's be real. You need a therapist. So we got to pray, and after we finish praying, we have to go do some other things, some real life tangible things that may not have been what we learned in our vacation Bible school days. Stuff has changed. We ain't eating buttermilk cookies no more and red punch. We're now eating spinach and drinking more water. Things have changed in vacation Bible school. So why can't things change on Saturdays and Sundays and any other worship day? We got to pray and whatever that and is, you got to do it.
Amen.
That is great information. And thank you, Pastor Jones, for that question. We just have about 2 minutes left. Just want to give folks the opportunity again to ask their questions if they have one. We could take at least one more. Any other questions in the chat for our panelists? Don't let the opportunity go by.
Cedric, I did want to answer that question though about faith, and I'm gonna just keep it real short and sweet.
Okay.
One, it's a lot of work that, from what I see, especially from the standpoint that I'm in, it's a lot of work that is being done with faith-based. It's just a lot of us have not caught up or caught on to it yet. I see that a lot because with myself and a lot of friends that I know, we talk about the mental health piece in churches, and we go outside of those four walls. We have like clinics, like we might do these things where we set up like health days or whatever, and we have these type of clinics where people in our community come out and things like that. My church, Destiny Temple, my pastor is a community pastor, period. That's what we do. We're always out in the community, and we address these things. I feel like over the pulpit, and see, this is why I get in trouble a lot, because I said, God, did you really want me to be a pastor? Because I just don't necessarily agree with everything. And so over the pulpit, instead of shaming or bashing people for what they need, we should be encouraging them to not only seek out whomever their higher power may be, but also seek out help that we cannot provide for you. That I feel like that goes hand in hand, because why wouldn't I want you to be your best self or your best representative of what it is that we do? And if I'm not providing you with what you need, why would I condemn you for going out and seeking or getting what you need? So I think we need to address it more without condemning, acknowledge that these issues and these problems are there. And I totally agree with Ms. James, because that's my own journey. My higher power took me to the rooms of AA before he ever took me back to a church. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was like, I believe that outside help has helped me to be able, you know what I'm saying, to sit or to even be in that type of setting and actually have an understanding of who my higher power is and what that higher power means to me. So I feel like in the faith-based communities, we don't always have to, I agree with Ms. Daniels, throw something down somebody's throat or beat somebody up with. Because sometimes when I'm not having a good day, I'm just not having a good day. I didn't say, that I'm not here to confess my sins to you or whatever. I'm just saying, hey, today wasn't a good day. That's all I'm saying. I don't need a Bible scripture. I don't need you to anoint my head with oil. I don't need you to shabba laba laba me. I don't need none of that. I just need a person, a human, because we are helpers of one another. So that's why I was like, I do believe that the faith-based community is moving towards getting more involved. But I do see the struggle as, if I can just be a little biased, when Miss James was talking about the bodies, we would like to see that in the church as well. We know that we are there to fulfill a need, but if you're only coming when you need something and you're not coming to support, or you're not coming to share, your knowledge, your wealth, and things like that, then that's when it's kind of like, okay, we can help you with your need, but understand we need you too. It goes both ways. Understand we need you too. So that's why I was like, I feel like faith-based things are moving that way, and some of us can't let go of old traditions. As I was saying earlier about the method has to change, but whatever you believe can stay the same. But the methods have to change of how we reach the people, because it's all about love. So that's why I was like, I feel like it's changing, but we're a little slow to change.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Pastor Rock, for putting a bow tie on our conversation. We have been to the porch today, y'all. So I think we've heard a broad range of perspectives of where we are as a community when it comes to these issues that we're facing. We are doing some things well, and there are things that we definitely need to improve on. And there are things that we can be hopeful for in the future, as well as Ms. Micha James offer up what we're doing currently right now. And so thank you for joining us. Thank you for our panelists today. Thank you for giving us a little bit more of your time. It's 4 after now. So we really want you to continue to be a part of these conversations. We look forward to having an additional conversation next month on another relevant topic in our community. So with that, we're going to close this meeting. And again, thank you to Nakida McDaniel, Micha James, and Pastor Rock Kelly for gracing us with your presence this afternoon. And again, we'll see you next month on the front porch. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.